Hello and welcome to Connected episode 269. It is made possible by our sponsors, Pingdom, Ahrefs, and Eero. I'm your host, Stephen Hackett, and I am joined by Mike Hurley.
Nice.
Hey, buddy.
Hi.
No, you ruined the joke. I was about to say that. Damn it.
No, I get it this time. It's my joke.
Hey, guys. This is how it's going to be today, huh?
Okay, boomer.
Don't you know that's offensive? You
I have
can't
to
say
edit that out.
Just call him dead.
I'm rolling all of my topical references out in the first 5 minutes today.
I think I'm going to bleep that.
Yeah. Okay. If you do, it's like, what did he say?
Yeah.
To him, you know.
So
I'm
we're
still waiting for my introduction, Steven.
Oh,
That's
yes.
very rude
Also,
of you.
Federico's here. Hey, buddy.
Hi, thank you. How are you?
I feel like if one of you speaks before I introduce you, I don't feel obligated to introduce you because people know you're here, right? Like,
But what if people have never heard the show before?
That's
they're
a
just
good
like,
point.
oh, there's an Italian here as well. I wonder
I mean,
what they're doing. you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, I just sounded like a rando on the show.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm recording with the window
who's this
open.
person?
Hi, my name's Steven. The British one is Mike. The Italian one is Federico. We talk about computers on the show. Welcome.
Thank you.
There. Everyone is up to speed. We start the show with follow-up. Last week, I asked listeners to chime in.
Which is a thing we invented.
Yes.
It's
Totally
a
on our
segment
own.
that we invented. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had asked listeners to tell us about Apple TV Plus on non-Apple TV hardware because it's available on a bunch of other things. Both Jonathan and Leon wrote in to say that they are watching it on Roku TVs, and I think Leon had a Roku streaming stick, and it seems to work pretty well. That
What's a Roku?
it's like yeah,
What's a Roku?
it's like
It's like a little streaming box.
right.
Yeah, I heard this, and I have an Amazon Fire TV stick, and
Oh yeah,
I tried to get it to work and kind of gave up. Like, I plugged it into the TV, and it didn't work, and it needed power, and I didn't have a cable. So I kind of gave up because luckily we had some follow-up. Because I was listening. You know, I listened to the show when I'm not on it. But luckily our listeners had tried it out for us. It's like, it all depends on what the software is like, kind of just in general on these devices. And like a lot of people say that it's superior on stuff with different remotes, right? Because like you get to use clicky remotes rather than Apple's remote.
right.
But they work.
Yeah, it seems like it's fine. Some people had complained about some like scrubbing being a little weird, but I think that's more on the device side than the Apple TV Plus side.
I can give you one weird esoteric thing that I came across.
Okay.
You know when you watch the TV shows on your Apple TV and it has the little startup chime, the Apple logo, Apple TV Plus startup chime thing, like their network stinger? When you watch these on the web, it doesn't happen. And the reason I know this is I was trying to get the audio. I wanted the sound, and I was using Audio Hijack, right? So I was like, oh, I'll just record them from Chrome. But it wouldn't play. I would like watch it on my Apple TV. It's like, aha, right, the chime is at like 10 seconds into this episode. Press play, it just wasn't there. So I ended up having to like plug my iPad into my USB pre. It's like a whole thing. For a joke that nobody got.
But you have the sound effect now.
I have it now, yeah. Do you want it?
Yes, I will play it at some point in the segment. As you were speaking, I was going to the Apple TV website in Safari, and then you said, it doesn't play on the web, and I just closed the tab. So,
It doesn't work.
teamwork.
But I got it for you.
We spent a lot of time last week with my wife talking about audio and the wide range of Apple and Beats headphones you can buy, and we reviewed our audio predictions. Even though Mike wasn't here, we felt like it was the right time to do it. And as we'll remember, Mike, you actually won. You were ahead of me and Federico.
Mm-hmm. So what's my prize?
Well, you got a week off. So
Well, okay.
there you go.
Retroactively. Do I get another week off?
No.
Oh.
I did also want to press and follow up that my wife and I decided to return our AirPods Pro. She's staying with the Power Beats Pro, Power Pro Beats, and I'm with the old AirPods, and all is well. And I got my $257 back, which is always nice.
Wait, 257?
Whatever it was. I don't know. Let me look at my receipt. We have tax.
It's like 250. Oh,
with
okay,
tax,
okay.
$272.
Nice.
So we got that going for me.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody wants to borrow $272, I got your back.
First person to write in claims it.
Yeah.
Apple Cash, baby.
We'll do like a reverse Kickstarter. Like people don't give me money for an idea. People pitch their ideas and I give them money. What would you call that? Like,
no, wait, that is a Kickstarter.
it's like capitalism, but it's like an adventure. What could that be called?
I don't know. A capitalist adventure.
I think that's right. Mike, you are the resident pop socket enthusiast.
Yep.
Would you call yourself an enthusiast?
I am actually an
Okay.
enthusiast of pop sockets.
Tell us
I have a very nice pop socket at the moment, which is an enamel pop socket. And it looks like space.
Well, tell us about this new iPhone case that popped up on Apple's website.
I saw this in our show notes and thought that I had been into some kind of fugue state because it definitely feels like something I would have put in the show notes.
Yeah.
But I didn't. So Popbox, oh my, PopSocket and OtterBox, two companies, make separate
OtterSocket.
products.
Otter socket.
Ooh, I don't like that. They teamed up a few years ago and they make a range of different products which integrates pop sockets into OtterBox cases. They have some that are incredibly ugly and rugged, some that are a little more svelte. But they have a new line that seems to be available only at Apple stores in a bunch of funky colors. They have like a pink, an orange, a black, which is not funky, and then a blue, which is definitely purple. It's like a pretty nice looking case that integrates a pop socket into it. I've been eyeing this case a little bit because I think the colors are cool. Now, all of these cases that OtterBox and PopSocket make together seem to suggest, wireless charging might work, but you might have to remove the PopSocket, which is kind of pointless. But these are now a product that Apple is selling directly. I think it's a pretty cool combo. I'm still a big fan of my PopSocket, and so this could be another option for you, especially an option for friend of the show, Alex Cox, because I know that they love purple cases, and this is very clearly a purple case, not a blue case, and they love pop sockets as much as I do. So Alex, if you're out there, I think this could be a product for you. Alex also loves orange, even though the orange is definitely not orange. None of these colors, pink, orange, purple, are blue. Then none of them are correct.
All these are wrong.
They're all wrong. You've got like salmon is orange. I guess the pink is kind of like a lilac color. It's not really that
Yes.
pink. And then
It's
the
not-
blue is purple. This is nonsense.
It's
What are
like
they saying?
I'm clicking to change the colors, and it's like, what am I looking at?
It's like a complete crapshoot. Like it could be anything. Is this like a Rorschach test of some description? Like you
Yes.
see
What
whatever
do you
color you
see
want
here?
to see? This is nightmarish.
I also have a question about this. So in the show notes is the search result page because there's 3 different cases in this lineup. And underneath the results, there's 2 buttons. There's search iTunes, just with the old iTunes logo.
Everyone knows that.
And if you click it on Catalina, it opens the music app. And then there is search trailers, which goes to the Apple trailer website, which I have forgotten existed. And if you load it, we'll put a link directly to it in our show notes. It looks like Apple's forgotten that it exists too, because
Oh my God.
it is in like the old like iTunes 8 or 9
Oh my!
UI. Like remember when iTunes looked like this with like dark
I
gray
love-
and graphite color and stuff?
I love the logo. It's got kind of a shine on it.
Yeah.
You know, at the very top.
But the trailers are actually new.
Yeah.
Like the trailers are up to date.
Because I guess these are being used in the iTunes or the Apple Movies store or whatever it's called now, right?
The iTunes Movie Trailers app, it's still around, the iOS app, and it got updated, 2 years ago. Oh, well.
Also, a bunch of these images are not Retina. And if you scroll to the bottom, comment, suggestion, or have a film trailer, ? Email trailers@mac.com.
Wow, should we send an email?
Here's the thing. They are still working on this because there is an Apple TV Plus banner on the top right-hand corner. Somebody updated that. Somebody put that in there.
Somebody just put it there.
Someone put that there.
Steven, I know that this is not Adapt, but I have a challenge for you, Steven, for next week. So I want you to find, now that I see this page, I want you to find the most hidden or old page that you can find on apple.com. So in the style of this forgotten iTunes movie trailers website, I want you to find something else that is just as hidden or not looked after anymore, like this. And it has to be somewhat funny.
Okay.
I thought that you were going to suggest that he sends an email to whoever runs trailers at Mac.com.
Oh, I am. I have an email draft right now.
Found your webpage today. It's super cool. Love it. Love Stephen.
Do you want to hear the
I
email?
love your web. You should just say,
Yes.
I love your webpage.
What about this? I just came across this page, and it brought me real joy in remembering watching trailers in QuickTime back when I was in school.
Oh, man, it's actually pretty sweet.
Lots of love. That is true. I remember that. Oh, damn. Stay strong. We believe in you.
Attach a photo of you in middle school, though. Like, you gotta sell it.
I have a picture of me in college posing with my PowerBook. I should send them that.
You should send that, yes. Somebody's gonna, that single person who's in charge of that email address is gonna send that to Tim Cook or Eddie Q. Maybe Eddie Q is gonna see it,
What if I wrote it as if
maybe that...
write it to Eddie directly?
Hey, Eddie. I'm sure you're in charge of this.
Just came across your webpage.
Hey, Big Q. I have 2 follow-up items that I would like to pose to the group, if that's okay.
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 As the resident tvOS expert, tvOS 13.3 adds an interesting feature. It has a setting to, I say interesting, it adds a feature. It includes a setting to revert the top shelf UI. So, like when you get the big, what is currently now, auto-playing trailers for stuff, if you were on the right. You can now revert this UI to the previous non-auto-playing video state that was in tvOS 12. This is going to be a setting in 13.3. So what is currently happening is there's 2 things going on with the top shelf UI. Well, it's 3 things. The third thing is no developers are using it the way that Apple is because nobody can be bothered. Like a lot of tvOS development, just nobody can be bothered to do what Apple would like them to do, like the single sign-on thing. Not the single sign-on, like the account thing where you can tie, like Netflix could tie their account system to the new user system on tvOS, but nobody's bothering to take advantage of any of these APIs. But it is possible for people to show their own autoplay videos, but no one's bothering to do it. This is Apple showing you what they think you should watch. They're making suggestions to you in this, and it's very frustrating for most people. It will now revert back to, if you change the setting, to what is in your up next queue. So it's showing what you're actually choosing to watch, but it won't be auto-playing videos. It will just be those static tiles again. So
I just changed this setting last night because I have the beta on my Apple TV. Very happy that it's back. I never understood the watch now thing.
I have no problem with the what to watch thing in general. I just don't want the video. And I know you can actually turn off the video by going into accessibility and reducing motion, but that makes other changes that I don't want to make. tvOS guy. See, I know all these hacks. TVOShacks.net. That's my next website. And Motorola, they're going to be showing off their foldable Razr phone today. It hasn't happened yet. I only mention it because if it happens and before the episode comes out, people will be surprised that I didn't talk about it. But it's just because it hasn't happened at the time we're recording. Maybe I'll talk about it.
Hey, how is your Galaxy Fold?
It's cool. I just tinker around with it. I've been away a bunch, so I haven't been able to play around with it as much. But like, it's not broken. If that's what you're asking, it's still going. And I like just like playing with it. I've had some software updates, which is nice. And that's all I have to say on that matter right now.
My tiny topic this week is to pour one out for my short love affair with the new Reminders app. I've really wanted to move into it. It seems like Reminders had its notes moment this year, but I wrote this blog post really kind of outlining why it doesn't work for me. And actually, before it was a blog post, it was in the Club Mac Stories newsletter, and Federico was very kind to let me repost it. So thank you. And it just doesn't work for me for a bunch of reasons. The way it sorts doesn't make any sense to me. You can't sort a list on iOS. You can only sort it on the Mac. And if you sort by due date, items with no due date appear at the top of the list instead of the bottom, which makes no sense to me. The UI can get pretty junky if you add a bunch of attachments to things, because reminders are supposed to show you everything all the time. And so like if you have a list and you have, a bunch of tasks, and you have one task with a note and a geolocation and a messages reminder and a website, like it all just gets added to that, and it kind of junks up your list view pretty bad. But maybe for most people, those two things aren't a big deal. But I think for a lot of people who are using something like Todoist or other programs that make adding metadata really quick, Reminders just doesn't do that. It uses the quick type bar for some things, but very often you have to go into the little information panel to change things about a task, where something like Todoist is kind of like a command line where you can just type your task name and enter the list name and any repeating stuff and the due date, the flag, all just as text. And Reminders wants you to pause, go to QuickType or hit one of the little buttons or go into the info panel. And I just found it to be a lot slower than I was hoping. I really hope Reminders can evolve into something that I could use, because I like the idea of having my task lists have all the cool like first party integrations that Reminders has. It's like the thing of like, remind me to ask this person and you attach it to their iMessage is awesome. Like, when I text John, remind me to ask about the trip. And next time I'm texting with John, Reminder says, hey, remember this? That's really cool. And nothing else can do that. And so I'm still using Reminders like I did under iOS 12 and before. I'm using it for some things, mostly geolocation things, like one-off stuff. Like the other day, someone had dropped something off at the house and put it in the mailbox. And I needed to make sure I got it out of the mailbox when I got home. And so I just told my phone, when I get home, remind me to check the mailbox. And that's just like a one-off thing, but the geolocation was the perfect way to solve it. And so I'm still using Reminders for those sorts of things, but I just can't move to it full time. And it makes me sad, because I think it's a really good app. I think they have a lot of really cool stuff going on in it, but those three things are just like the perfect combination to knock it out of contention for me.
I have been really wanting to try Reminders, but Todoist keeps doing stuff, and they had an update recently called the Foundation update, and it's like part of like a big overhaul that they're doing, and I really, really like the stuff they've added. Like, it's a lot of UI changes, really, and like surfacing things that were previously pretty hidden, like the subtask menu and stuff like that. But I'm very happy with the changes that they're making. And that's making it harder for me to really get up and move over to Reminders. It's because it's a big thing to move Task Manager, and Todoist is like, it's got its claws in me right now, because they're making some interesting moves, I think.
I'm still using Reminders very happily. I agree with some of Steven's comments. I disagree when in the article he mentioned that he doesn't like how all kinds of attachments and like options for a single reminder show up in the main list. So like if you have a link, if you have a location, I like that kind of stuff, that it's shown in the main list view. The thing with Reminders is that right now it doesn't have all the options that I would like to have, like sorting or saved searches, that kind of stuff. And for the past several months, really, I've just been making my own with shortcuts. And I know that it's not ideal. Like, I shouldn't have to create a shortcut to, sort tasks within a project by due date, but at least it works, and I can still use Reminders. And we're going to talk about some of the other Reminders shortcuts that I've made later in the show, but it works pretty well for me. Honestly, like, I don't think I have the same needs as you or Steven. Like, I mostly just spend... I do organize my tasks in lists, but I mostly spend my time in the today and scheduled views.
Me too.
Like, I rarely go down into an individual project. So, I don't know, it's fun for me. I would like it to be better. I hope that we don't have to wait until June for, to have sorting on iOS or Just even the ability to attach a document. If you want to attach a PDF to reminders for now, you can't. You can only attach a JPEG, which is silly because in Calendar, for example, you can now attach any document. You can just pick from the files picker. But in reminders, you can only attach photos, which doesn't really make any sense.
So here is my the other thing that, like, listening to you talk about that and me talking about like the Todoist Foundations thing. The concern I have with maybe now that I've spent more time thinking about it, of really going all in on reminders, is if there is something that is frustrating me, it's going to be a long time until they maybe potentially change it. And again, all apps and services can have problems. Stephen has had the same problems with task managers forever. Nobody, no matter how much they promise, seem to want to change the things that annoy him, right? Things won't change their problem. Todoist won't change their problem. But if a fix is going to happen, I maybe don't have to wait a year for it. And I think that for me, that is becoming a little too much of a sticking point. In the same reason that I don't use Apple's Mail app, right? For a lot of the same reasons. That, like, some of the decisions that Apple makes with those apps are counter to what I would want to do, and I have no ability to really convince them. And even if I could, I'd be waiting a long time for them to make any change. So I don't know. I haven't fully made my mind up yet, because I've been like tinkering with reminders, and there's stuff that I do actually really like about it. But I'm more hesitant than I was before about moving my entire to-do system to it.
That's such an interesting point about so much of Apple software, is that it is lockstep with iOS releases. And we've talked about that before, but I really feel like Apple's got to, where possible, sort of unchain those things. Like, there's no reason that we should have to wait a year for, like you said, Federico, simple attachment changes. Like, just do it in a point update. And I'm hopeful that they are moving that way, because you do see things come to some apps off cycle, but the big changes they want to store up for those big marketing releases. And I just don't think that's the right way to go for all components of the system, right? Like, I get that for big things, but Reminders it's an important app, just like Notes is an important app, but it's also in a really competitive landscape. And if they want to really take a swing at market share, they've got to treat it more like a standalone product and less like a feature of a larger OS.
Yep.
All right. Lastly, before our first break, has Google Docs been updated to include multi-window support?
No. This is because this is feeling more and more desperate every week now. But I did want to add on your discussion from last time about multi-window support in general. I mostly agree with the two of you, right? Like, it's not groundbreaking, but it is really useful to have in certain circumstances. Like, over the last couple of weeks, I've been needing to have multiple Pages documents open at the same time. And like before, I would have my iPhone and my iPad as a way to do that, but I don't need to do that anymore, which is really good. And I'm happy to have that. I still want to see more. I want to see more apps adopt it. I still want dedicated fixed spaces, so I can just choose two windows, pin them together, and they stay together forever. But as a step one, this is still pretty good. It's useful when I need it, but I'm not like doing all of my work in a million windows all over iOS. And that's good, because that would be a terrible mess.
Yeah, it gets out of hand pretty quickly, I think. All right, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. We have the new 16-inch MacBook Pro. We have a leak about Apple's AR glasses initiative, and then Federico is going to talk about Toolbox Pro, a really fascinating new iOS app that extends shortcuts. But before that stuff, let me tell you about our first sponsor. That is Pingdom. The holiday shopping season, Black Friday, something called Boxing Day, that can't be a real thing, but here it is in my document. They're all just around the corner. You know, everyone looks for good deals. Part of me kind of wants to shop for a 4K TV this year. And, you know, when you're online, when you're shopping, there's little worse than a shopping cart fail, or you're on a website and it's suddenly unavailable or really slow. Well, Pingdom is a service that lets developers, owners of websites know the moment their website goes down in whatever way is best for them. It uses transaction monitoring to alert you with cart checkouts, forms, login pages, all that stuff. If that fails, you're going to know it before they affect your customers and your business, before that frustration sets in. You can customize how you're alerted and who is alerted depending on the severity of the outage. Go to pingdom.com/relayfm right now for a 14-day free trial with no credit card required. And when you sign up, use the code CONNECTED at checkout to get an awesome 30% off your first invoice. Our thanks to Pingdom for their support of this show and Relay FM. The long international nightmare is over. We have a new MacBook Pro keyboard. Feels good to say that, doesn't it? Right?
Well, it's a new MacBook Pro with a new keyboard. It is
a new MacBook Pro out of the 2 MacBook Pro sizes and 3 complete notebooks, yes. And it has a revised keyboard. So,
right, because we've had new MacBook Pro keyboards a few times, and that has not helped anything.
Every 6 months. For every 6 months for the last 22 years, there's been a new MacBook Pro keyboard. But Apple, so let's get into this. So today, after months of rumors, they released the 16-inch MacBook Pro. It replaces outright the 15.4-inch model. So this is not a new, like we talked about, a new high-end model. This replaces the 15-inch. So if you want a MacBook Pro, your options are 13.3 and 16-inch displays. As we talked about, the keyboard is new. We're going to come back to that in a second because I think that's the biggest deal here. They took the opportunity to make the machine a little bit bigger, not only because of the screen, but they also went a little bit thicker, adding a new thermal system. The GIF of it reminded me of the iMac Pro website where they talk about all the air that it can move around. Apple says this will provide for additional capacity, so the CPU and GPU can run hotter longer, an additional 12 watts TDP in the chassis now. The only GPUs are these new AMD mobile GPUs that look really good, actually. And they're going to be warm, and so Apple's given themselves more headroom in this design, which is really good. There's also crazy new speaker magic, which I'm not sure I fully understand. Mike, I'm hoping you can explain the speaker thing to me because I read it a couple of times. I'm not sure actually grokking what they're doing. New microphones. Please don't podcast with just a laptop, but if you do accidentally, it'll sound better. So a big deal, and I think what's really interesting about this machine is that it is the MacBook Pro we've known for the last 3 years, right? The I/O is the same. The design is effectively the same, right? The industrial design, the character of the machine hasn't changed. But they have gone in and updated and changed things that were really sticking points with a lot of users. And yes, there are people who would want an SD card slot. There are people who still want MagSafe back. I think it's clear that Apple still believes in the general future of the MacBook Pro as they laid out in 2016. But this is a course correction to fix some things on these models that were problematic. But I still think that what they said is this is the MacBook Pro now. That really hasn't changed. It's really a very similar machine to my mid-2019. So I have the last 15.4-inch MacBook Pro. It is my laptop. And this and a 16 side by side, they're very clearly cut from the same cloth. But this one, they've gone in and really changed some things. So Mike, you have an episode of Upgrade Up with Jason. Jason has a review unit. He was at the press stuff. He's talked a lot about it. You had a really great interview on Upgrade that I want to hear about.
Yep.
So tell us about Upgrade a little bit, and then let's get into the keyboard.
Yeah, so Jason was at the press briefings in New York, and he had the ability to spend an entire day, like a 24-hour period, with the MacBook Pro, the new 16-inch MacBook Pro. And we have a long conversation about it where we dig into it and kind of go through all the ins and outs. And the episode also has an exclusive interview with the MacBook Pro product manager, Shruti Hadia. And she's incredible. You should listen to it to hear that. It's kind of sounds... The interview is really interesting because it kind of sounds like a presentation, right? Like it sounds like it points like this is how this product would have been presented if it was presented. But the great part is because Jason's there, Jason can ask more questions, which you usually can't do during an Apple presentation. So it's a really great interview, and it unearths a lot of the thinking that went on kind of behind the scenes, I think, as to why Apple are making the changes that they're making. Because, I mean, we're going to talk about this. There are some changes that everybody wanted. And then there are some changes that they made which make sense for their customers, but maybe we didn't necessarily think about them before. And a lot of them are actually around audio, which is really interesting. So you wanted me to explain the speakers. I can't do an incredible job of this, but I can tell you kind of the basics. It's a brand new system. Has 6 speakers in the system now, which are kind of split apart in such a way that they're trying to do room-filling stereo sound. Apple are talking about the idea that you could kind of move around the laptop and hear the audio differently. You know, like it reminds me of the HomePod, but obviously it's not as good as the HomePod, right? Like the way they talk about it, at least, with the room-filling sound. But then there's a really interesting thing where they have these things called dual force-canceling woofers. So what's happening is there's like these 2 woofers that I believe are facing towards each other, and they're doing this like, I definitely can't explain this well enough. They're analyzing the sound to cancel each other out to reduce vibration. So you don't get that, you don't get like a weird distorted vibrating sound. So basically what they're doing is they're just trying to make a system inside of a laptop that can sound as good as it can sound. So that's pretty cool. And then they're also really talking up this 3 microphone array that they've got. They're doing beamforming, right? So they can try and just focus in on the voice. And Apple are literally saying, these are good enough for podcasting.
No.
There's a million caveats to that. It's better.
Here's the thing. If you podcast on an open laptop, it will sound better than the old one, but your audio is still going to be bad. And what's even worse is if you're not using headphones, the other person's audio is going to be in yours. And that is an atrocious thing to do to a podcast editor.
It is like emergencies only and or not podcasts. So it's like music production. It makes way more sense there if you want to get like a rough scratch or something,
or if you want to do a conference call or something like that.
Yep.
It's the same thing, right? Like Apple, when it was one of the iPad Pro events, they had some sort of announcement about microphone support or USB, and they're like, yeah, now you can use your iPad for podcasting. It's like, no, you can't. Like, I mean, you can if you want to do a bunch of crazy stuff, but like
a million caveats to how you could use it. Like
they like using podcasting because it's like a cool thing that cool people do, like us, clearly. But this is not like a go buy a microphone. Like if someone emailed me wanting to start a podcast, like, how about a new 16-inch MacBook Pro? I'm like, cool. Here's an Amazon page of some microphones. Go pick one.
Yeah, because you just spent a lot of money. I mean, it's like, look, in very specific circumstances, you can make those microphones sound really good. But those circumstances are very specific, right? And so, like, on Upgrade, we actually switched the audio.
Yeah,
There's
I heard
like a section of the show where we switched the audio from Jason's microphone that you had with him to the laptop mic, so you can hear it. I would say you could probably tell me, oh, I'm using a crappy USB mic, and I will believe you. But that's about as good as you're going to get. And this is nothing on Apple's technology. It's just because a dedicated microphone is very different to a laptop microphone, right? Like a dedicated microphone, you speak directly into it. A laptop microphone, you're just kind of speaking at the computer.
Yeah.
So it could never do as good a job.
And a regular microphone is not directly attached to a keyboard.
Yeah, so it's not going to get all the tapping, all the vibration. But like, and it's not going to hear the fans, probably, if, at least they're less likely to hear the fans. This is a much better microphone for the majority of uses that any regular computer user would have for a microphone. You are going to sound vastly better on any phone calls or conference calls or video calls that you take on this computer. And that is like a better thing. I mean, and this is kind of my feeling about this MacBook Pro in general. And I think Apple have been building to this for a few years, and they're doing it again here in different ways. They are shoving in features that are meant to be angled at like specific use cases. So like, this is really good for this person doing this with video. This is really good for the person doing this for audio. And it's probably not amazing for those people, will be good in a pinch, but those features can actually be used by regular users more easily. Right? So like, this is one of them. I'm just like, oh great, I can use this and it's better for me when I take those conference calls. But I don't think that really any podcast is going to switch.
It's a PR line. It's not a serious thing. So that makes sense. And that is cool. Like Apple has been really harping on better audio in their products for a long time. Like that was a big deal with the 2015, the first 12-inch MacBook. Like I've got one of those. It sounds incredible, especially considering the size. Then of course you have HomePod and everything else. Like they have really upped their game in sort of the speaker department in the last few years. And it's cool the laptops get it, because a lot of people just, edit on a laptop, right? Or just even you're just watching it, you're using it as your TV or something like that. So it's an important aspect of a product that I'm glad has gotten some attention this time around.
And especially in a machine that's this size, because they've made it bigger, you have the space to do this. You have the space to put the speaker grills in. You don't have to hide them under the keyboard, right? Like, make it good, because it's a big machine. It's a big machine. It's bigger in every way and heavier, which is super interesting. But that's what they decided to do.
So do we want to get into the keyboard?
I think you should.
Okay, so this is a radical departure from the Butterfly keyboard that, again, showed up on that first MacBook, actually, and then spread to the MacBook Pro line and then the MacBook Air last year. And we don't have to rehash this history today, but it has been extremely unreliable, broken keys, broken switches, double presses, all of that sort of one category of problem. And then the second category is a lot of people just didn't like the keyboard, right? There was no physical escape key. The arrow keys you could not tell apart by touch, and the travel was really low. So you sort of have like personal tastes problems, and then you had my keyboard is broken type problems. And I think Apple has tried to address both at once. So they are calling this the Magic Keyboard. If you listen to that Upgrade interview, it's clear this is not a copy and paste of the external Magic Keyboard that a lot of us, including me, use every day.
No.
But it is inspired by the Magic Keyboard. So it does use scissor switches.
Yep.
It does have a rubber dome underneath, not steel, like the Butterfly keyboard did. And it seems like it is effectively the Magic Keyboard underneath, but they've done some things to add to the key stability. That was a big reason they went to Butterfly, they said, is that the keys were more stable, that if you hit the corner of a key, it didn't sort of bow and bend under your finger. And so they've done some things to help the stabilization, which the scissor key mechanism is sort of inherently unstable the way that it actually compresses. So they've held on to the idea that these keys should be stable, but they've totally redone what's under them to make them more robust. And they've also addressed a lot of the personal taste issues. So the touch bar is now smaller with the physical escape key on the end. It has the inverted T arrows, which the Magic Keyboard, by the way, doesn't. The Magic Keyboard, I have one right here in front of my iMac Pro. It has the full height left and right arrow key, so you can't really tell where you are by feel.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that one of the main reasons they are using the Magic Keyboard name here is to confirm to people in branding that it is not the Butterfly keyboard. Like, they are piggybacking on the popularity of the other keyboard to sell the new keyboard, which is a fine thing to do because it is closer to that, but like, it's not the exact same keyboard in a bunch of important ways.
Yeah, and I think the Magic Keyboard is pretty well liked. I mean, I'm really happy with it, and I think a lot of people are. I do sort of wonder, like, if this God forbid this keyboard have problems. Like, is that the use of that name going to backfire on them? But I get the sense that they're pretty confident that this thing is going to be okay.
Yeah, well, it's probably going to go back to within the realm of reliability of the previous laptop keyboards because it's way closer to those, right? And they know they can make those. They know what needs to be done on those.
So I think if you've been like me, have had issues with the old keyboard, my 2016 MacBook Pro, the key fell off, and I had to argue with the Apple Store because it was before the repair program. It was a nightmare. My 2019, which is my current MacBook Pro with the revised materials, and they have the little silicon gaskets and everything, it's actually been pretty reliable. I don't use it every day, so maybe that helps. But I don't like the feel of the keyboard. I don't like the low travel. And so the new one seems like an upgrade either way, unless you're one of those people. And I'm convinced those people are out there who really love the way the Butterfly keyboard feels, who really like it. You're going to be disappointed by this because this is a reversion to the older design. But I think that group is probably a pretty small minority.
It could have some overlap, though, because they've done stuff to make the keys more stable. And the keys are large, so you might still get a lot of the things that you liked about the Butterfly keyboard in the new one, but without being the clicky-clackiness. But who knows?
Sure.
Different strokes, different folks.
Yeah, and this is a thing that even amongst the old MacBook Pros, because I had a 2016 and 2017 and now the 2019, they're all radically different. And I dislike the 2019 the least. The 2016 was the worst. Like they have
Yeah.
improved it and changed it, and this is going to be a big departure. But it's interesting because it's really hard to remember a time where Apple has gone back on something that they pushed so hard when it was launched. Apple does change its mind, and things do change over time. But this is really interesting to me, and you can
also
see
in
it.
that they didn't create a new thing. They're actually telling you it's a thing that already exists, right? Like it's the Magic Keyboard, right? They didn't come up with like Scissor Slide Keyboard X, right? Like they are going back to a keyboard that was introduced in 2015 to draw their inspiration for the new keyboard.
And in the interview, it's spoken that they did a lot of internal testing at Apple and these keyboards, and what people want and the reliability and all that stuff. So I believe they've taken this really seriously because I think they knew that they had a real problem on their hands. I think them talking about how long all that testing took and everything is sort of a we know this took a while, but it's going to be worth it type of feel. So I hope that it is as good as we think it is. Because I have pretty high expectations of this keyboard, and I think a lot of people probably do.
In like 15 or 20 years' time, there's going to be somebody like you who's starting a whatever YouTube channel is, whatever YouTube is in 15 years, right? Like whatever that thing is. And they're going to try and collect all of the laptops with the different keyboard iterations, It's
just going to, that'll be me. So I have two. I have the 2015 MacBook and I have the 2019 MacBook Pro. So
for now,
I'm all set. I have breaking news.
Okay.
I have an email back from trailers@mac.com.
Are you being serious?
I will put.
Are you being serious right now?
I'm going to put a screenshot.
What?
And I'm going to obscure my email address because I use my personal email address.
This is on very active watch then.
But I am putting a...
I can't believe that this is happening to us right now. Who cares about the rest of these products?
Oh my God.
So I wrote... I told you what I wrote, that it brought me real joy remembering QuickTime. And I got an emoticon smiley face back. So it is 100% Eddie Q.
That's totally Eddie.
This is the best thing. That is quite possibly the best response that could have been given.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this?
Where
hang on. Are you sharing
I'm obscuring my email, so I
screenshot?
just have to upload it once. I don't want to share my personal email with the world. I mean, look, I have two work emails. If you want to email me, it's steven.relay.fm. I'm not giving you my personal Gmail account.
Oh, now we know it's Gmail. I could guess that. Is it Steven@Gmail?
All right. I'm putting this in the chat room.
Oldmacfan@gmail.com.
Reset the PRAM@gmail.com.
Oh my God, they didn't even send an emoji.
That's
That
what I
shows
said.
how old this person is.
I said emoticon. Yeah.
Oh, that's the best, right? Because
Oh my God.
they are living in the past, this person,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is totally on brand.
Wow.
This is so Eddie.
Really good, right?
This is excellent.
And it's one of those emoticons with the nose, so like the mean business.
I also have some other breaking news, or some real-time follow-up. Apparently, the extended keyboard with the number pad, which I don't use because it's dumb, has inverted T keys, but the compact one does not. So I just wanted to correct that before people send me a bunch of pictures of keyboards.
Nobody uses the numpad one though, right? Isn't that we could decide that previously?
Yeah, no one uses it. So that is that's sort of the gist of the MacBook Pro keyboard. They've gone to the well of the Magic Keyboard and drawn up fresh water of typing pleasure, and here we are.
Mm-hmm.
I was like 3 sentences into that and didn't know what to do. But what do y'all think about the cadence of the spec bumps on the MacBook Pro? So like looking over the last couple of years, because these got a spec bump. It wasn't just a new keyboard. Like they are slightly faster CPUs, a much better GPU, and better, faster RAM and SSDs. But we had 2016, which was the fall. And then we had 2017 in the summer. That was at WWDC. And then 2018 was July, so a little after WWDC. And then we get to 2019, and like my machine came out in May, and here we are in November, and again, it is spec bumped. I like this cadence because Apple just ignored the Mac for so long. And the MacBook Pro it's got to be the most used Mac at least by people who care about specs. Like the MacBook Air has gotten one update, the Mac Mini hasn't. But the MacBook Pro, they seem to really, at least the 15-inch, they seem to really be, with their foot on the gas. Do you guys think this is something that they can continue? Do you think it's a good thing they're doing it? Do you think people are frustrated if they bought a computer in July, then it was updated in May? Like, how do you feel about it?
Frustration thing's always going to be a problem. Like, especially like on these types of products, like iPhones, iPads, you can pretty much guess when they're going to come out. But it seems like a lot of the MacBook Pro stuff has just kind of appeared, whenever it's appeared. I think I would be surprised if it maintained the pace that it's been at, because it really feels like Apple's just been trying to undo the problems and has been like inching, like, all right, so we put better chips in them and we made them more powerful. Now we've like fixed the keyboard a little bit, and now we've fixed the keyboard a little bit more. We promised the keyboard's fixed this time. But I don't know if we're going to see like another revision in 4 or 5 months' time. If they've got it right, we'll wait a year now.
I mean, if the updates continue to be small, like they could just keep increasing core count. And I don't know, I don't keep up with Intel's roadmap anymore because that's a game of frustration. But I think it seems like they're committed to when something is available, they'll do it. And if it's 6 months
nice.
or 9 months,
But this is such a big jump. Like the power is such a big jump. The chips and the graphics cards are 2 times more powerful than what they've replaced. You can now put 64 gigabytes of RAM and 8 terabytes of SSD storage in these things. Mm-hmm. They don't need to touch this for a while. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah,
they made big jumps.
Would you accept I don't have any opinions as an answer?
I know you're over there having a cup of coffee while we talk about the MacBook Pro.
I'm just listening to you guys. It's interesting. It's not that I don't care. Make no mistake. It's not that I don't care. It's that it's like when I listen to politics on the news. Like I don't have an opinion. Like I trust what you're saying. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the MacBook Pro. I do have questions about what they could do in the future. The 13-inch is still hanging out there. What I would like to see is a 14-inch MacBook Pro. That's a size they used to ship like in the PowerBook G3 days. 14-inch is a pretty sweet laptop size because it would still be more portable than this thing, which like you said is a little bit bigger than the 15. But you get nice screen size, and it would if they really did 14, they go from 13.3 up to 14, and this on the 15 they went 15.4 to 16. So if they do it to a round number, it'd be even a little bit bigger increase. So I would be excited about a 14-inch MacBook Pro.
I have a concern about a 14-inch MacBook Pro. So one of my most important things for a laptop is portability. Maybe it won't be that.
If it's close to the change between the 15 and 16, the thing's only like, it's not that much bigger.
Right, but I want the lightest computer I can possibly have.
Well, then you need a MacBook Air.
And this is what I'm going to say. So I will, I was thinking that like I would update my MacBook Pro at some point, but I want to wait for the keyboards to roll around. And so I want to wait and see now, I think, if the MacBook Air gets the new keyboard. And then that's the machine that I would want. Mm-hmm. Right?
I think doing that, while it may frustrate people who want the most powerful computer to also be the smallest possible size, I think it kind of makes sense for Apple to have the MacBook Air stay at 13 inches.
Yep.
Be smaller and lighter, because right now the 13-inch MacBook
sense.
Pro and the Air...
It actually makes sense for them to make the MacBook Pro, the smaller one, bigger and heavier, because then it pushes that the Air further apart again.
Yep, because they are very similar right now, side by side. I also just wonder what they're doing, because the 13 and 16-inch have different pages on Apple's website, and that's never been done before.
Well, they're vastly different computers now, right?
Well, it may just be because they got to talk about the keyboard, and that's awkward if the 13-inch is just sitting there, right? Like, separated a little bit. I think I saw some people on Twitter say they were worried about the future of the 13-inch MacBook Pro. I'm not. We did this like 5 or 6 years ago, and a lot of people thought the 13-inch MacBook Pro was going away, and it turns out then Apple was like, actually, it's the most popular Mac ever. So here's a Retina version. I feel like the 13-inch MacBook Pro is very popular, and I think making it a 14, applying this new thermal system to it, doing these things would make it even more popular. So I'd like to see what that does. Like you said, the pricing on the SSD and the RAM, that is higher than ever. Like the capacities are higher than ever. 8 terabytes SSD, 64 gigabytes of RAM. Apple has continued to march down the pricing of SSDs. The 8 terabyte is $2,200 in the US, and this summer it would have been $2,800 for a 4 terabyte in the 15-inch. So they continue to bring pricing down, make it more aggressive. And the stock models have doubled their SSD storage. So it used to be 256 and 512. Now it's 512 and 1 terabyte in the two stock configurations. And I think that's a welcome change.
Yeah, when you max one of these out, it doesn't go as expensive as I thought it would have.
Yeah.
You can max it out at like $6,000, which is very expensive, but I would have thought that it would have gone higher than that, but it doesn't. So,
anything else on the MacBook Pros? I'm excited.
I think it's a good machine. Or how excited are you, Stephen?
I have the 2019. I have the last probably 15.4-inch MacBook Pro, and I'm not going to upgrade it. It's 3 months old. It is covered in stickers, like an obscene amount of stickers, and
stickers come off.
That's true. I know you know that, but it's also my secondary machine. You know, my iMac Pro is what I use every day. I have the i9. It's plenty powerful when I need it on the road, and so I'm going to hold on to this, I think, for a long time. And because it's the last one.
Going to the Apple Store anytime soon?
No, I was there last night to return the AirPods, but, you know, old MacBook Pros are out. There was a lady buying a 15-inch MacBook Pro, and I wanted to be like, hey, the new one may be coming. Rumors seem to say that it's coming, but I didn't intervene.
She's in a return period, so it's fine.
Yeah, I didn't want to be that weirdo telling somebody not to buy something. Yeah, so I'm going to hold on to the 15-inch, and because it's the last one, I'll use it, and then it will be ushered into my collection because it's the final 15-inch MacBook Pro, a size that we've known for a really long time. Now it's gone. That's kind of weird.
Goodbye, old friend.
Goodbye. This episode of Connected is brought to you by Ahrefs. Whether you work for a big brand or maybe you own a small business like we do, or you do freelance work, getting traffic to your website, understanding how it gets there, understanding what your competitors are doing, that stuff is always a challenge. Ahrefs is the all-in-one SEO toolset that solves those problems. It gives you the tools you need to rank your website at Google and get tons of search traffic. SEO is like a black box of mystery to me, but Ahrefs does a really good job at breaking down what's going on with really helpful tools like charts and graphs and really good search tools so you can understand where your traffic's coming from, understanding how your competitors are doing, understanding what AdWords are popular in your area of business. And it's all laid out in a way that's easy to understand and easy to make decisions on. So you're not just staring at an analytics page, scratching your head. They give you real actionable information. Ahrefs uncovers how your competitors are getting traffic and why. You can see the pages and content that send them the most traffic, and you get estimated search volumes with their Keywords Explorer tool. So you can see how well a piece of content is likely to perform before you write it. Ahrefs is home to a ton of useful tools like Content Explorer, which can help you find guest blogging opportunities, and Rank Tracker, which lets you track your progress on keywords. So take the mystery out of SEO. Go to ahrefs.com right now. That's ahrefs.com. Sign up for their 7-day trial for just $7. Get reports on your website, see what's performing well, and figure out your next move. Whether you have a personal site you want to get a following on, or your company needs more traffic to convert into sales, go there now. Ahrefs.com. Get that $7 7-day trial. Our thanks to Ahrefs for their support of Connected and all of Relay FM. There was also some news about the Mac Pro. Remember that? I do. I think about it all the time. It is coming in December. Apple confirmed that to members of the press this week, just like the iMac Pro did 2 years ago, which I think is what we predicted on the show, that it would be the very end of the year.
Yep.
There's some small news on this. 4 terabyte SSD was the max before. Now it will be 8 to match the new MacBook Pro. And they've made some tweaks to the Afterburner card. That is the optional card made for offloading video processing to take it off the CPU and GPU. When Apple showed it off this summer, it was 3 streams of 8K video is what the Afterburner could handle. That at the time seemed like magic. I got to see it in the demos, and it was just unbelievable to see 8K video playing, and you go to Activity Monitor, and the CPU is just hanging out, like not breaking a sweat. Well, 3 wasn't enough, and it turns out it's actually going to be able to do 6 streams of 8K video now, which is bananas. Like, I cannot wrap my head around this, how they're able to double its capacity. It is an option. We don't know how much that option is going to cost. We don't know how much anything's going to cost. We don't know when it's going to come out. But it is coming soon. So by the end of the year, we will know much more about the Mac Pro. And that is very exciting.
Of course, there was no display, no cheaper display.
No.
And the Pro Display XDR got mentioned during all of the press stuff because the MacBook Pro can drive 2 of them, which is wild.
So you can hook up a $2,800 laptop to 2 $6,000 displays.
Yep, which seems about right economically. I think that's how that works.
It's called.
I'm intrigued to see
economies of scale.
Exactly, I'm intrigued to see what these MacBook Pro updates will do to the pricing configurations of the Mac Pro, because to say like they've made some pricing configuration options available for this Pro product, which are cheaper than we would have expected. And I'm keen to see, because like the expectation is the Mac Pro will be astronomical, right? If you want to do anything to it price-wise. I'm keen to see what actually ends up happening there.
I think the SSD pricing coming down, I would imagine the Mac Pro will match it. I don't know why it wouldn't.
It'd be wild if it didn't, right? Because you'd assume they're probably using the same stuff.
Yeah, the RAM I think will probably be a little more on the MacBook Pro because it's EEC RAM and fancier, faster desktop full-size DIMMs.
Okay,
but I don't know. I think you're right. I think the Mac Pro is going to be expensive. Look, the base machine is expensive and not as good as the iMac Pro spec wise. So even to match the iMac Pro before you buy a display, I mean it's going to be thousands. And but I think the high end will be. It's still going to be ridiculous, but I think it's going to be slightly less ridiculous if you just want to build like a machine to match the iMac Pro. Right, you want the same amount of RAM, the same storage. I think it's going to be better than people fear, but I'm still burying my money in the backyard for when the day comes, so to speak. Don't dig up my yard, please.
There's definitely no money in the yard.
There's definitely no money in the yard. Mike, can you tell us about the AR glasses situation?
Yeah, wild report from The Information, which The Information as a website name sounds strange when you say it out loud, like it's an oracle. The Information has reported, but the website The Information has reported that Apple recently held a meeting with over 1,000 employees detailing their AR and VR roadmap for the next few years. This meeting was run by Mike Rockwell, who runs Apple's AR and VR teams. You may remember him from being on the talk show a couple of years ago at WWDC.
Oh, yeah.
That's that guy. Apparently, the 1,000 employees, it's not just like a random assortment of people. That's how many people Apple apparently has working on their AR, VR efforts. I assume they are not dedicated employees. I would assume that they are employees who have a hand in this as part of their role. That would be my personal assumption, because 1,000 people seems like a lot of people. So I would expect that there are like people that work on this software and this software who are involved in AR and VR, right? Like, for example, engineers who work on Metal are probably involved in this, but it's not all that they do, right? So this roadmap had 2 major points on it. In 2022, Apple is planning to release a mixed reality headset. Mixed reality headset is kind of like HoloLens. So it is a headset that could be used for a combination of AR, VR-like stuff. So you could use it for both things, effectively. There's a bunch of technological ways in which you could have visors which will allow you to watch just video, for example, or you could have it so you could look around a room and like see things around a room. With AR glasses coming in 2023, the mixed reality headset would be kind of like these HoloLens, Oculus type devices, You would expect it to be kind of like the devices now, like the Oculus devices. I think it's the Quest, which is the one which doesn't need to be hooked into a PC to work. Apple apparently believed that AR glasses could replace iPhones in roughly a decade. Very weird thing to think about, I think, and say. One interesting tidbit about the way the glasses would work is like, so let's imagine that me and Federico are having a conversation and he gets bored and starts checking Twitter on his glasses. The lenses in his glasses would darken, which would show that they were being used, which is both weird, cool. I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't like the sound of that. It sounds
no, but it's like
sort of
I would want to
dystopian.
know if you wasn't paying attention to me, though, right? Like the reason they're doing this is to try and stop the social like awkwardness of it all. But
yeah, but are they gonna? I don't know. It's like the whole premise of, oh yeah, I'm in front of you, but let me check out of this conversation and read my email through my eyes. Like, I don't want to sound like that guy. But maybe this is a bridge
maybe it
too
is.
far.
Maybe
like,
let's pause that for a second. There's a bit more detail, and I want to come back to that point. So, this meeting, I can only assume Apple knew that it would get out. 1,000 people's too many people. I wonder if potentially this is part of the plan, because rumors were heating up about 2020 being the year of AR, and clearly Apple are not ready for 2020 on this. And they like to have an AR-focused product. I'm not saying this is the reason they held this meeting, but I'm sure it was a nice secondary reason to have it, right? Like you can kind of get the message out a little bit. Bloomberg then had a report, so Mark Gurman at Bloomberg had a report saying that the iPad Pro, we've heard this stuff before, will feature a 3D camera for enhanced AR technology. This is previously rumored as being something for 2020 iPhones. Gurman also now revises previous AR claims that coincide with what the information reported, saying that Apple had changed plans to shift from 2020 to 2022, states that the headset will focus on gaming, video, and virtual meetings before the AR glasses, which would then, in theory, be enough to, I mean, you'd kind of expect that they would launch kind of like how the Apple Watch launched in regards to what they will be used for and how much they can do. But Apple seemed to believe that this could be the future of everything.
So I've been thinking about this, and I think there's at least for me. So the way that I look at this, I was more excited about the future. Imagine this future where everybody super fast access to the internet through glasses, right? And so you have content, you have directions, you have this UI that overlays with the real world. I was more excited about this until maybe last year, because I feel like over the last year, things have really gone dark in terms of like the internet's effects on people. And I feel like, at least for me, there's a correlation between all the terrible things that I've heard and seen, like social media and Facebook and, the convergence of tech and politics, like all these things that have happened have sort of like dampened my excitement in terms of like, yeah, I'm not sure I want Twitter in front of my eyes, or
do
like,
you want to be constantly strapped in?
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to anymore. Like, I was more excited about this until, maybe last year, maybe a couple of years ago. Like, in thinking about this, I don't feel right now, a couple of years before, we've been here, the three of us, before we were doing a show before the Apple Watch. We were doing a show while the Apple Watch was a rumor and a couple of years out. And I'm not, at this moment, so 2 years, 3 years before this potential release of the Apple glasses, I am not as excited like I was for the Apple Watch 2 to 3 years before it came out. Because the whole idea of, like, I'm trying to use the internet less. I don't want to have it in front of my eyes all the time. And so
I think the problem is in this idea of it becoming the device that becomes your device, which is the thing that makes it the most uncomfortable. if we're thinking about this as
because I can't put down my phone.
I can't put down especially me as a glasses wearer. So this would replace my vision glasses, right? Like I have no way of easily getting away from them. Like it seems like a peculiar, like the idea of this being
I would be without the internet and blind.
Great, this is a perfect mixture. Like as the idea of this being a device like the Apple Watch, which you use in certain circumstances, has certain functions for you. Interesting. As being the main device, more concerning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it takes the problem with the Apple Watch where it is still at times inappropriate to look at your watch. So I had this situation just the other day. Yeah. I was with one of my parents and I got a text message, something. I was wearing my Apple Watch and I looked down at it and like, oh, do you need to go? I was like, oh, no, like I got a text message. And then I just sound like a jerk, right? Like the Apple Watch still has some of those contextual problems. Glasses, I think, make it worse because it dims when you look at the screen out, like that crazy idea off the table. You could have no idea if someone's paying attention to you or not. Like the other person has problems too. I agree with what you said, Federico. I don't want the internet like that close to me, but it's also things like notifications and all the stuff the Apple Watch does where sometimes I want to take my Apple Watch off and I don't wear it every day. And there are times where I don't need it to do its thing. Like glasses is like amplifies all of that in a way that I don't want to have anything to do with.
Yep. And also, like, isn't the point of this so you can look at people and get information about them? Like, isn't that the point of this technology? Like, really? Isn't that why it's supposed to exist?
And the more you think about it, the more you start running into the same issues that Google faced years ago with the Google Glass product. Like, and then you got to think about like putting on some kind of LED indicator if you're taking pictures or videos of somebody, and it just becomes awkward. And there's just this weird disconnect between like the same company that makes screen time and is, praising the idea of trying to use phones less and the internet less and keeping an eye on your usage habits is also working on glasses that you can put on your literally on your face. I don't know, like is it the same company is like preaching two different ideas here. And yes, we don't know exactly what the product is like. Maybe it has some very specific applications. And so you can make the argument that, but you're only going to use the glasses when you're checking out directions or if you really got to respond to a message. But the problem is you got to remember that humans are very bad at practicing restraint. And so the moment that you put on the glasses, like you're going to use them all the time and you're going to have these people like in the movie The Matrix, like they're plugged in and they're like checked out, they're gone, they're looking at their feeds and their emails.
If you put Twitter on my face, I am constantly reading Twitter. That's what's happening to me.
Exactly. Like I can control myself. I'm not a robot. I'm a human, and you give me the temptation, I want the temptation. And so I don't know, man. Dystopian is an adjective that's overused. But it does feel like that. Like, I don't know. The idea that the lenses darken, like, oh my God, what is that? No.
That might not be the thing, but like I agree with what they're attempting to do there, right? Which is like, it's like you said about you should have an LED indicator from taking a picture, right? Like that's the type of thing that they are trying to do, right? So it's in a way, it is Apple's attempt to discourage you from using this technology when you should be having human interactions. Like that's all well and good, but that's not how people work.
Yeah, but you know what the solution could be? Just don't make the glasses. Like if you gotta think about,
but what else are they gonna do?
I don't know. Make a car.
Why can't these companies just for once just keep doing what they're doing?
Because that's not how companies work anymore.
Yeah,
right. Like
everybody has to do everything.
Yes, this was a great little soundbite that was on ATP a couple of weeks ago, and it is just a great way to put it. Why do all companies feel like they have to do everything now? That is where we are. I mean, and the reason is because that's what technology companies have to do now. You don't have a choice, right? Like if you want to be on the stock market, like that's where you are now, right? Like if you want to have a profitable company on the stock exchange, you need to be in every area. Plus, all companies want to lock you in forever. They want to get more average revenue per user, right? Like, this is how you do it, is by you provide people with literally everything they could possibly want. It's the only way you get people to stay, is the thinking. And this is the next frontier, right? Like, I talk about foldable phones, right? That's what I talk about a bunch, and it's the same principle that I use for foldable phones. It's really the only thing that these companies can focus on, because no one's had the iPhone idea. So you have two areas now. You can work on screens that change in size, foldable technology, or you work on AR, VR. Like, these are the areas of technology that exist within our immediate grasp because nobody's had any revelatory breakthrough. So this is what people are working on, at least working on with any public kind of eye on them. Because these are the areas of technology that are going to be explored over the next few years, whether they work or not. But like, this is why, right? Like, Snapchat's still working on their spectacles, and they have more that they're working on. Facebook's working on stuff like this. Google's working on stuff like this. Like, this is what technology companies are making.
Let me ask you guys this. You brought up Google Glass a second ago, and my impression is that hurt Google's brand for a while. That people maybe who didn't think Google was creepy before thought Google was creepy afterwards because the Google Glass situation just went so poorly for them. Part of that was the technology, part of that was the customer base and some terrible things people did with them. Do you think that Apple risks the same brand damage by releasing something like these glasses?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it is an inherently complicated and difficult thing to do. This is an area that could have genuine, interesting use cases, but you are bridging some real social norms. We've done it before. You know, like, smartphones became a thing. It broke all social convention, and we started again, right? Over the span of like a couple of years, we changed everything about how we live our daily lives because these like, I was just thinking about it a couple of days ago. Like, me and Adina were both editing. We're just hanging out together and we're editing photos on our phones to post on Instagram. And this is like a thing that we like to do. We do it at the same time. We just, we enjoy it. That is a super weird thing to do because we are together but not together. We're doing this like solitary thing on our own devices, right? Like, based on some other conventions, we are being antisocial, but we don't see it that way. It's like phone time. And we accept this, people accept this because that is where we are now, because we changed our social conventions. It is possible we could do that again, but I don't see right now, with everything that we could conceive, that this product could be good enough to make us do it. The reason it happened is because the iPhone was so good from day one. It blew our minds, right? Because it was so good. It made it worth it. And to do that again is a very, very difficult thing. It is a once in a generation type thing, right? It's happened like 2 or 3 times in technology history, recent technology history, right? Like, luckily Apple's been there pretty much every time for this, but it is a very, very difficult thing to do. Like, one other example I might give is like the Game Boy as another one, right? Where like it became fine to because the Game Boy, the way you play the Game Boy is kind of like the way you use an iPhone, right? And like that was like perfectly acceptable because the Game Boy was a great piece of technology. But like, it is a very difficult thing to do this, to change the way that people interact with other people and technology in their lives. It doesn't happen very often. And we weren't ready for it with Google Glass, so it got laughed away. There is absolutely nothing to say right now that any AR glasses from any company could be the thing to really hit a home run. And it feels like it is a harder technology problem to solve than the iPhone was.
Let me ask you this. Do you guys listen to music or podcasts wearing AirPods or headphones while you're at home and your wife or friends or kids are also home?
Yes.
I don't.
Okay. We very frequently want to listen to podcasts at the same time at home while doing house-related stuff, and we choose to listen to different things. So AirPods is the easiest way to do that, right? That's why.
Interesting. Yeah, Silver doesn't listen to podcasts, but also like we have this thing that like we listen to music together, and both of us, I guess, we find it kind of rude if we have some time together and one of us decides to listen to something on their own. And so that's kind of like I see the glasses. If like even more like we even try, I generally make an effort not to check Twitter or work, like use my phone as little as possible while I have time with Sylvia. Like it's just a thing that I've been doing for the past couple of years, really. So I don't know, maybe I come at this from a slightly different perspective, because I do believe that, yes, I know that it's the norm for people to hang out and just be on their phones. I think it's totally weird and wrong, personally.
Well, I will just clarify, for me, when we do it, it's like a choice that we've made, right? Like we're going to do this now, as opposed to we try our best at home to not allow for the mindless picking up of a device when we're spending time together, right? And that was something that I used to do more, and have wanted to make those types of changes into the way that I'm spending time with my family. But there is a time where we would be like, all right, we both want to edit photos, right? So why don't we just do that now? This is like a joint activity, right, but we're using our devices in a solo way. But like if we're watching TV, I'm not picking up my phone and reading Twitter, right?
Right. Yes, exactly.
And it does get way harder, surely, if these devices are strapped to our faces. Surely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so here's the other thing, right? So how do we interact with them? How do you interact with
Siri, baby?
Yeah, but like, isn't
Siri
that even worse? Everyone's just talking to themselves all the time.
You know, the Apple Watch has the little scribble keyboard, so you can like write the letters.
Oh God!
What if you did that, but with where your eyes are looking? Yeah, I mean, everyone would have a migraine instantly. So it's not a perfect solution, but it's pretty good. Like,
you've got to assume that there's some kind of eye tracking in this technology eventually, right?
Got to be,
right. Like it has to be. And again, isn't that like a really uncomfortable thought?
Yeah, I don't like that
very much.
I don't know where we're going to go with this. It is a new frontier.
I understand like that everybody's doing it. I struggle to understand if it's really necessary. Like, do we absolutely?
Is this the thing that makes us old men?
Maybe.
I don't know.
See, that's also my problem. Like, I have these thoughts, and then I think about these thoughts, and I have other thoughts, including, am I becoming, a boomer, as they would say? Like, I don't want to be, the old guy, and I'm in my 30s. Like, I'm not an old person, at least by my standards. I don't want to be the old person with the Mac blog. I'm going to talk about the iPad forever. No, I don't want to be that guy. But also, like, glasses, like, I don't know. I'm trying to use my phone less, and you're pitching a device that's
how you use your phone less.
I don't know if
who needs to use the phone?
Yeah, but the Apple Watch didn't make anyone use their phone less.
No.
I don't think. Not really.
No, because it's not. It's like a two-handed device. It's like whatever.
But I also want to say, I would totally buy an Apple VR gaming device, like a dedicated thing. That I want. It's just it's the idea that this is going to replace the phone.
Well, because a mixed reality device is not that different to any device that you currently have. You are making the decision to use it at that time, right? You are putting the device on, you're using it for a period of time, you take the device off. Like you pick the device up, you use it for a period of time, you put the device down. Right. But it is closer to the Apple Watch, right? Like you are taking this device, you're putting it on your body, and you're allowing it to interact with you, right? It's that, but like turned up to 11, because now you're seeing it. It's in your eyes. It is literally shooting this content into your eyeballs.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It's like, yes, you can still make a decision, but it's very hard to make a decision when you have content in front of your, eyeballs. Like, I can decide not to look at my phone. I can decide not to look at my wrist, but man, my
you can't not look at your eyes.
Like, what am I supposed to do? Close my eyes? Like, I don't know.
I don't think y'all are doctors.
Man, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I assume we're only going to talk about this more and more as time goes on because this certainly seems real at this point.
But at least we can take a break now. It's not 2020, right? 2022. So it's not next year.
In fact, we're going to take a break right now.
Oh.
I'm going to tell you about Eero, our third sponsor. You probably binge watch favorite TV shows, right? Just in the last couple of weeks, we've had Disney Plus and Apple TV Plus launch. So you're probably doing that, catching up on stuff, and you want to be able to do it from anywhere in your house without any interruption, without buffering. And that's why you need Eero, because Eero blankets your whole home in fast, reliable Wi-Fi, eliminating poor coverage, dead spots, and buffering, so you can have consistently strong signal wherever you need it. I've talked about Eero in my house in these ads for years, but I've also set up Eero in my family's houses. So my mom has this big 2-story house out in the country, and it's an older house. We've all been in older houses where the Wi-Fi doesn't travel as well. And it just wasn't working with what her ISP had given her. So we picked up a set of Eero base stations, and it's great. You can wander around her house, you can be out in the yard, and you can stay on Wi-Fi. It means that her phone, her laptop, her security cameras, everything has nice, consistent signal across the whole house. Eero, in short, is the Wi-Fi that your home deserves. And there's an all-new Eero starting at just $99. It sets up in just a few minutes. You plug it straight into your modem or your router, and you're good to go. You manage it all from a super simple iOS app. I keep it on my iPhone. It's great to go in and make changes and see what's going on. You can do cool stuff like pause the Wi-Fi while everyone's eating dinner, get alerts if any devices try to join your network, and so much more. Eero has fixed all of my Wi-Fi problems. No more dead spots, no more buffering. You can get your Wi-Fi fixed as soon as tomorrow. Just go to Eero.com/weirdfish and enter the code WEIRDFISH at checkout to get free overnight shipping with your order. That's EERO.com/weirdfish to get your Eero delivered with free overnight shipping. I just have to say it one more time because it's such a great URL. Eero.com/weirdfish. Our thanks to Eero for their support of this show and Relay FM.
Still can't believe I was able to convince them.
It's maybe the best thing you've ever done.
Good luck trying to convince them on Ash Earn for next year.
Oh,
Sip of Grandad.
Sip of Grandad. That one's going to be a lot more complicated and might require some legal documentation.
Yeah, that's going to be a real situation. All right, Federico, you have written about this new iOS app called Toolbox Pro. I've been playing with it some. This thing seems incredible. What's the deal?
Okay, so the idea is that this is an app that you download for free from the App Store. It's got a $6 in-app purchase. Most of the features you can use for free. Some of them require the premium purchase. And it is an app, but it's really a collection of actions for shortcuts. So the idea is that with Toolbox, you can extend the Shortcuts app. And this is possible thanks to parameters in iOS 13, the new Shortcuts features that allow you to run many of these actions completely inside Shortcuts without ever leaving Shortcuts. You just customize them with parameters. And it's made by an indie developer, Alex Hay. And he had this idea of thanks to parameters, it is possible for actions from third-party apps to effectively become native Shortcuts features. You don't have to leave the Shortcuts app. You don't have to use URL schemes or X callback or that kind of stuff. And so the idea would be Toolbox takes a lot of existing system frameworks, like frameworks that Apple itself makes that are not yet integrated with Shortcuts. And Toolbox has actions that bring those features to Shortcuts. So stuff like performing OCR on documents or images, or scanning documents with the system document scanner, or even, and this is quite funny actually, Shortcuts has reminders integration, but it's limited. And I believe that Shortcuts has the same reminders actions that Workflow launched years ago. Apple never updated them. They didn't update them for iOS 13, and they even didn't update them for basic features that existed well before iOS 13, like marking a reminder as complete or editing an existing reminder. Like that's a basic feature. Workflow didn't have it. Shortcuts doesn't have it. Toolbox Pro has better reminders actions than Apple's own actions.
How?
See, that's the thing. There's a disconnect between the frameworks and the APIs that Apple makes available to developers and the actions that you see in shortcuts. And the idea would be that thanks to parameters, more teams at Apple can now make proper actions for their apps. So in theory, the Notes team, the Reminders team, they could support all of these features. They could just go out and use the parameters API and make new actions. But that hasn't happened yet. And so this developer said, okay, with the Reminders API, the framework is called, I believe, EventKit. I can edit an existing reminder. I can create a new reminders list, or I can let you modify reminders. I'm gonna make it an action, and Toolbox Pro has better reminders actions than Apple. But also there's two main ideas about Toolbox Pro. One of them is making better system actions or new system actions because Apple hasn't released them yet. But also this idea of taking machine learning features and frameworks like Core ML or Vision. I had a joke in my iOS 13 review that Vision is the hottest API in iOS 13. It was based on a Saturday Night Live skit. But really, Vision does everything. Like Vision has OCR, Vision has object detection in images, has people detection, animal detection. And many of these features are available as actions through Toolbox Pro. So like you can detect objects in photos, and so you can put together shortcuts that do like get my latest 50 photos and show me a list of all the photos that contain pasta or pizza. Like you can make a pizza Instagram workflow. Like seriously, that gives you a list of the latest food pics you've taken. You can have actions that detect like areas of interest of an image. And so in theory, you can make like a thumbnail generation script to crop an image where it's the most interesting according to the machine learning framework. All of these things are native Apple-made frameworks and features, but Shortcuts doesn't use them yet. But thanks to parameters, third-party developers can come in and say, I'm going to take those features and make them available to users as actions, which I think it's a genius idea. Could be easily Sherlocked, of course, but will it though? And that's sort of my takeaway from the conclusion. Like, these are system features. Apple could make the same actions, make them even better because they're, it's Apple. They can use some secret or private APIs. But will they? Because so far they and I guess this is a bigger conversation about like what's going to happen to shortcuts. In iOS 13, we've seen a redesign of shortcuts. They have the new editor, they have the natural language editor and all that stuff. But there's so many more power user features that are still not here. And so I gotta wonder, like, the first year of shortcuts at Apple in iOS 12, we got the rebrand. The second year, we got parameters and the redesign. Next year, third year at Apple, will they finally address all the feature requests that pro users have been asking for? So like more controls in the editor, more ways to run shortcuts. What's going to happen next? And so in this landscape, it's interesting to see these utilities like Toolbox Pro, and there's a bunch also coming that are sort of building an ecosystem around shortcuts. It's definitely something worth keeping an eye on. But that's basically what Toolbox is doing, is giving shortcuts power users, or just folks who use shortcuts a lot, more actions that feel like native actions, because that's actually what they are. They are native actions made possible by iOS 13.
I feel like I'm confused though, because like, what does it do? Like, what can it do?
Well, this is a great question actually. When you download the app, there's an examples section, so you can go in there and there's like dozens of shortcuts made by the developer that give you an idea. I focused on 4 areas in my review. So the reminders actions are great. You can edit reminders, which is the main feature, I guess. You can. I made a bunch of shortcuts that let you like reschedule multiple reminders at once, or move reminders between lists, or like remove due dates from reminders. You can do all kinds of modifications to existing reminders. The OCR stuff is also great. You can scan documents or extract text from images from documents. These are things that people download dedicated apps for on the App Store. Now you can build a shortcut for that with Toolbox. And they also like the app has a lot of, and this is why in the article I said this is for power users. It's got a lot of sort of quality of life improvements. If you use shortcuts a lot, it's got all these actions that remove a lot of friction from building shortcuts. So like it's got actions to create rich menus, which are super nice to look at. They got like you can have a menu, like a list of options, that it's not just a plain list of text. You can have icons based on SF symbols. You can have colors. You can have subtitles. You have actions to modify dictionaries. You have actions to not having to write regular expressions. So like if you want to do more advanced find and replace in shortcuts, eventually you got to use regex if you just use the Apple actions. And Toolbox gives you a lot of options that are just visual, that allow you to do a lot of like trimming text or matching text between certain words, like stuff that you would normally have to write regular expressions for. They're just provided as a single step.
It's taking some of the more complicated things that shortcuts can do and basically wrapping them up into actions that somebody like me can just drop into a shortcut to cut out a bunch of work.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
That makes more sense.
Yes. And also it's got features, as I mentioned, like on Mac Stories, stuff like global variables. So the idea that you can create your own database of things. Like in shortcuts, usually a variable only lasts as long as you're running a shortcut. And instead, Toolbox lets you create global variables that persist across multiple shortcuts that are synced with iCloud across all of your devices. And so I built, for example, a shortcut that lets me track the video games that I'm playing. It's very nice. It's just this idea of you don't have to create your own JSON database, stuff that I've been doing manually in shortcuts. Toolbox gives you a native visual option that's super nice to look at. And it's definitely for power users. Like if you just use shortcuts casually and you never create shortcuts, this is not for you. But if you spend a lot of time in shortcuts, either creating shortcuts or running them, you probably have a use for this. And if anything, I would suggest that people check it out because it's free. Many of the actions are free. And I believe what I think it's the most impressive action of all, the preview action is free to use. And the preview action is kind of wild. It lets you preview content. It's like fancy quick look, you could call it. It lets you preview multiple things at once. So like you can send the text and an image and a link together, and it'll figure it out and it'll show you all items on a single page. And what is wild about this is that on the user's end, it looks like sort of like Markdown. It's got a simple syntax. You can have like bigger text or smaller text or images and links. But actually, it is basically a wrapper for SwiftUI. So behind the scenes, the custom preview is all based on SwiftUI. And so it's responsive by default. It supports dark mode by default. And it's this idea that I think Jason Snell mentioned this before on Upgrade. a few weeks ago. The idea of like maybe in the future you will be able to actually run SwiftUI code in shortcuts and build your own little interfaces. And this is sort of like that, but it goes through Toolbox. So it's got a bunch of things for power users. If you use shortcuts a lot, you should check it out. This is my takeaway. It's very fascinating.
It reminds me a little bit of editorial.
Mm.
Like those what you're showing in the review, like those pages you were talking about, where it shows you these like kind of bare bonesy pages where it's got a bunch of links. Like it just reminds me of the way that you used to do all those crazy things of editorial, where you'd look at App Store pages or whatever. It reminds me of that.
Right.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And you think that it's safe to like really get wrapped up in this app? I mean, I guess if Apple Sherlocked some of the features, that's fine, but like this sort of thing is kosher with how Apple wants to operate?
So that's also a great question. I think it should be safe. It's not using any private APIs. It's all, which is also the main selling point. It's all based on the parameter framework that's open to developers. Everybody can use it. Personally speaking, I have made 10 shortcuts for the site that you can download today based on Toolbox Pro. There's 7 more advanced ones that I will be releasing for club members this Friday. But I will try because I run the Mac Stories Shortcuts Archive, I will try not to use Toolbox Pro actions all the time. Because you know what my stance on dependencies is, like in general, I try to keep in this case, like my code as clean as possible. Like I don't want to be in a situation where all the shortcuts that you find on Mac Stories require Toolbox Pro. So in this case, I had to make them because I'm reviewing the app. But I plan on keeping like when I resume my regular shortcuts coverage, I will not include Toolbox Pro actions. I will use them for personal use, but the shortcuts that you find on Mac Stories will not require the app because I don't like the idea of, these shortcuts, as you said, Steven, maybe someday becoming outdated, because maybe the developer doesn't, maintain Toolbox anymore.
I mean, this sort of thing seems right for Apple accidentally kicking it out of the App Store later. Always had that fear with nerdy tools. Maybe that's unfounded, but and I'm certainly not saying anything about the developer. But,
I think you have a point.
It's always a scary thing. Well, I think that does it for this week. If you want to find show notes for all the stuff we spoke about, head on over to the website, relay.fm/connected/269. While you're there, you can get in touch with feedback or follow-up via email, or of course, you can send that in on Twitter. You can find Mike on Twitter as IMYKE. Mike is the co-host of a bunch of other shows here on Relay FM. It's in the show notes. Go check out Upgrade. That interview is spectacular. You guys really did a good job. Congratulations on that. You should go check that out if you haven't. You can find Federico on Twitter as Viticci, Viticci, and his writing, of course, at macstories.net. You mentioned the club. You guys put a lot of awesome stuff in there. So if you're not a club member over at Mac Stories, you should go find out more about that. You can find me on Twitter as ISMH and my writing over at 512pixels.net. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Pingdom, Ahrefs, and Eero. And until next time, guys, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.
Adios.